You?
Thank you. It's great to see you too.
Good deal. All right. Well, Rebecca, this is another one of those exciting days, exciting topics. And I know you've been thinking about this topic for quite some time. So tell us, what are we going to be talking about?
You know, we have touched on this here and there, but one of the things that I've thought about are we limiting our results? Are we the limiting factor in the results that we want to get? Are we expecting great outcomes, but not doing or working on the things that we need to do to get those great outcomes? So, so are we our limiting factor? And where we go, no matter what it is, no matter what it is that we're doing, or are we our biggest stronghold?
Bottleneck. We're our own bottleneck.
Yeah.
Yep. I think there's a lot of truth to that. One of the things that I have learned in my own life is if there's something not going the way that I want it to go, I need to look at it and ask myself, what what role do I have in this? I think it's real easy for people to look outside of themselves and to say it's that problem or it's that problem or it's that problem, but oftentimes we don't look inside of
Right.
ourselves. And I think that's where we have to start. If we're going to be really, really good at getting results in our life, we have to start by looking inside.
Yeah.
Right.
There's one thing that I firmly believe in, that if there is something that you want to do, there is a way to do it. There's nothing stopping you from doing it. We can make excuses. We can make, I can't do it because I don't have enough time. I can't do it because I don't have the income. I can't do it. But I strongly believe if there is something that you are wanting to do, that there is a way to do it. You just have to figure out what that is. And one of the things that reminded me of that was this weekend we started rewatching Undercover Billionaire
Hmm. Yeah.
with Glenn Stearns, and some of that might be made for show, absolutely, but what it is Glenn Stearns gets an old truck and $100 and no contacts in his phone, and Glenn is a million or a billionaire, and they take him to a city, and he has 90 days to come up with a business idea that has $1 million valuation. But I'm watching the things that he does because, $100 doesn't go very far anymore. And this show was actually videoed, I don't know, 5 years ago.
Been a while.
But even back then, $100 does not go very far. So he's like, "Okay, well, I'm just gonna sleep in my pickup." But he goes, "I gotta figure out how to make some money." So the first place he goes, he's in Erie, Pennsylvania. And there's a lot of factories that shut down. So the first thing he does is goes and finds some old tires. And he sells some old tires. He finds some old tires that are in the junk, but he sells them, makes a few bucks. And then he, with that money, he's able to find a place to sleep. And from there he sold some more tires, got a little bit more income, and he found a car. He bought a car for $700, completely detailed it, and turned around, flipped it, and sold it for quite a bit more than what he bought it for. But just looking at the things that he had to do, and granted, like I said, it is a TV show, so I'm sure, but some of the things that he had to do, that thinking of, okay, if I want to get to from A to B, what do I need to do to get there? And if it's, I need to study an hour every day on whatever this information is that I need. So I need to carve out that time. I need to make the time. And so that's kind of, talking about, are we our limiting factor? Absolutely. Our mindset and sometimes the way that we think about things are things that stop us from moving forward.
Yeah. And interestingly enough about that that movie Undercover Billionaire, he's trying to, in 90 days, create $1 million evaluation business,
Right.
which is totally doable as long as you follow the steps, right? And those steps were him. He had to do the work. He had to do the right steps in the right order,
Yeah.
to be able to do that. And starting with $100, no contacts, nobody that he knows, nothing but an old truck and $100, right?
Right.
So when you look at that, how do you start that way? Well, what are the most important things? You have to have food and shelter. Two things you have to have, right?
Right.
And you got to get those things established first. And then from there, you can start building. You know, the other thing is contacts. You have to have contacts. And he did a great job in building his contacts. He did a great job in finding people, the right people, entrepreneurs, those that would help, those would be part of the team. He did a great job in finding contacts, and he knew nobody.
Well, and I think one thing, and we fall into this, is we do not utilize the resources that are available to us. One of
No.
the things that he did is he went to the library. He went to the library, which got him in contact with, I think it was through the college, but they help entrepreneurs with business plans, and they help. I'm going to give a shout out to Jamie David over in Creston. She does a lot with a small business and is very knowledgeable. And I know a lot of times when people are beginning to start their businesses, or the business plans, the things that they need to do, there are so many resources out there. Even if you just Google it, there are so many resources to to help you and show you the things that you need to do,
Yeah.
even if it's not for business. If it's a personal thing that you're trying to achieve in your life, there are so many resources out there to help you. And I just don't think that we utilize it. We try to do it on our own. And as we know, doing it on our own kind of gets into our own way. Um, but not utilizing the programs, and YouTube is great with tutorials on things, and so not utilizing that stuff, I think, is a big detriment. you know there's just so much out there.
Well, there is, but there's also, if you don't go to the right places, and this is what I liked about Glenn is, he was in that example, he was without money. So money was not an option. He had an idea. And where do you go to express that? You go to the places where there's a computer,
Hmm.
where there's going to be people that can guide you and direct you. The chamber office is another one that can point you in the direction of where can we find help. And the other thing that was his willingness to ask for help,
Oh yeah, that's a hard one for me.
the willingness to just open up and say, I don't have all the answers. I don't have all the answers. I got to learn here. I don't know anyone. I don't know what to do. How do we ask for help? When we're out building a network and I'm introducing people into a new community if they've never been to before, the very first place I go is the chamber. I go to the chamber office. Why? Because they know the businesses there. They know the players. They know the entrepreneurs. They know the people. And if you're willing to go to the chamber office and just say, I'm new here, I want to help build something successful in this community, who do I need to know?
Yep.
Who do I need to know? And when you get there and you start asking questions, they'll tell you. They will absolutely tell you because they're in the business of hooking people up,
Yep.
right? That's what they do. So it's extremely important that we understand how to go about these processes and follow the system. And the first step in that system is being willing to ask questions
Yeah.
and engage and get help.
And like I said, that's something that's hard for me, and I don't know if it just stems from, if I ask for help and I can't do it myself, then personally for me, I think it always just used to come up that I was weak, then that I wasn't smart enough to figure it out. And that's not the truth, because I, regardless of whatever you think, I do not know everything as much as I would like to think I did. But there's a lot of stuff I don't want to know. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You have to have an idea of it, but I don't have to be a specialist in it because there are people out there who are. So when it comes to even forming our business and things, talking to people about the things that we need to do, I don't have to be a specialist in that. I got to know how to do it and when to do it. But
Yep.
that's what they're there for.
Yep.
And sometimes, that's another thing that it used to be I was getting in our own way with growing our business because I didn't want to ask for help. And I have found the more help that we get, the better off we are. Um, when there's something that you don't know, asking. We used to have books that we looked it up in called encyclopedias. If some of you younger folk don't know what that is, those are they used to be the cool picture books because they had loads of information. But now we have advanced Google, YouTube, all of those things. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's interesting, Rebecca, when you think about all these different things. You mentioned there are things you don't want to know.
mhm.
That is so important for people to understand, right? Because if you take on too much information with things that you really don't need to know, next thing you know, you're not doing what you need to be doing,
Right.
right? You're not focused on the right things. And my friends, that is an absolute critical element. And if you're not focused on the right things, guess what? You're not going to get the right outcomes. Promise you that. Now, there's another thing. Let me throw this out at you. When you think about the growth journey and the challenges associated with it, who you learn from matters.
Right.
Who you learn from
Yeah.
matters. I was on a call this weekend with a gentleman that I thought was just a great guy, absolutely all around great guy. And as much as I love this guy and love what he's doing, love what their company's doing, they have a tendency to learn from old school professionals. And these are the people who um, can have a tendency to promote what is easy, what is easy to implement, what is standard and known in an industry. And it's important that we grow on the shoulders of those before us and not just grow alongside of them. It's easy to grow alongside somebody.
Yeah.
It's hard to grow above and beyond what someone is teaching you. So we want to be careful who we're learning from because we want to learn forward. We want to grow forward and upward, forward and upward. And that means we're going to have at least a few people in our inner circle that are thinking ahead and up. They're not thinking to what is today and trying to just find new ways to make new wheels in today's world.
Right.
We need to find things that are going forward and upward, and that means we need people in our circle of influence that are stretching us to a new level.
Yeah.
And then we need to know how to search that, how to know what is true, what aligns with nature. Here's the thing. This is something that you might like to dive into, or maybe not.
Yeah. We'll see.
How do you identify if something is actually true that you should pursue it or you should not? Well, how do you identify if something is absolutely true or you should pursue it? So here's my take on it. You guys can argue with me, you can give me feedback. There are laws, there are physical laws that exist within nature. And the laws of creation, the laws of nature, the laws of the universe, these laws that are out here, they simply cannot be broken. It has the appearance that you can break these laws. It has that appearance, but long term, you cannot break the laws of nature and be successful. You just can't. Whether it's in human beings, whether it's in our soil, whether it's in our universe outside the atmosphere of the earth, there are certain things you just cannot break. Because if you break those laws, you will eventually get caught and it will catch up with you. So you have to ask yourself, is what I'm learning, does it align with the laws of nature? Deep subject
I
right
was going to
there.
say, this just went really deep, really fast.
It can go really deep,
So
really
back
fast.
to what we were discussing.
The growth journey.
It's an idea, but yes, I mean,
Yes.
it's a concept that if you want to sit down and think deep about it, then absolutely sit down and think deep about that. Our discussion today having to do with, are we getting in our own way? Yes, you do have to decide what is truth.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is it true that I don't have time to do those things? Is it true that I don't have the income to do those things? And it's, so you have to decide what the truth is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, am I going to go that deep? Those are for those are pickup discussions. Those are
Those are
pickup
deep.
discussions.
Yeah, those
Yes.
are deep discussions. But it is something to think about, because we as human beings, we need to have a source, a way to test, is what I'm learning really, really good for me, right? Is what I'm learning the right thing that I should be learning? Because we only have so much time on this earth. And the things that we're learning, we need to make sure we're learning the right things, and make sure it's going to impact our lives the right way. I noticed that Brittany jumped on the Zoom call this morning. One of the things that I so admire about Brittany is what she has done in learning about health and her own body, and how food and, you know all the different elements that we're putting into our body, how it affects our body. And that is an example. She has learned how to align with truth,
All right.
truth of nature, truth of how she's created. And those are different examples of what we can learn by doing the test and the research. She knows if she breaks those laws, it's not healthy,
Mhm.
right? If you break those laws of the way we're created, it just doesn't work.
Well, and I think it goes back to, because we were talking about, I don't want to know everything. I want like the cliff notes to
Mhm.
some of the things. I
Yep.
need to know the highlights and what I need to do, but I don't want to know everything. So it goes back to when you're finding somebody to listen to, because out there right now with health issues, there is one person that says this, and there is another person that says exactly the opposite is better for you.
Mhm.
And so digging into and knowing who you are, your body, what it consists of, what you're doing with it, and doing the research on it. And sometimes it takes a little bit to research that. Um, so yes, you do have to be careful of what you're listening to, and how it's coming across for you. You have to be very conscious of that. So
Mhm. Yep. All right. Well, we're about 15 minutes into it. Actually, we're about 20 minutes into it. So let's open this up for discussion with our Facebook audience, shall we? Or with
so I
our
guess,
Zoom.
yeah, one of my
Yeah.
questions would be, what's getting in the way of you for you that maybe you are doing that you need to
What's getting in your way,
yeah,
keeping you from
what's your
growing?
stumbling block?
Anybody have some thoughts this morning?
A stumbling block here is not handing off enough of the menial task.
Yeah.
What can you give us an example, Brad? That's a very, very good point.
Um, Still doing too much of the blending that I'm teaching people to hand it off and just have enough confidence it's going to be right. Too much of being the person who wastes 2 hours waiting on a truck to get there, not knowing what time that's going to be. And now having that office set up to where I have good enough internet to continue to do the things I could be doing at home if I wasn't there.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Simple things.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a big difference. Interesting about the handoff, we call that delegation. And, from a leadership perspective, we have to make sure that the ones that we're giving the responsibility to, they have the ability to respond the right way, which means we have to make sure we're prepared with the systems, the processes, the understanding, the training. We know how to make sure that they are good. That's a really great point, though, Brad. That's a very, very great point, because it's hard to get away from the tasks that consume our time, not allowing us to do the best things, right? And it's very important that we have a plan and a system on how to make those delegations and that transition.
Well, one of the examples that I used to use was when we first started our company was building a website. And I would spend hours and hours and frustrations and tears trying to figure out how to do this website.
Yep.
And I found that if I hired somebody for 5 hours that knew exactly what to do, knew exactly how to do everything, and I could spend my time on something else, creating income,
Yep.
that it was less tears, it was less frustrations, it was, the job was getting done and I was still able to do the things that I needed to. And it took that realization, because that's what, when we talk with some of our clients about, oh, whether I should hire somebody right now to do some of this smaller stuff, or is that allowing you to open up to do more things of what you need to do?
Yeah.
Because in the end, it's worth it. It's worth it.
Yep.
If you hire somebody for $10, $15 an hour to do some of these um, smaller things that are just taking up some of your time, which is allowing you to go out and create income of, who knows, maybe $150 an hour.
Mhm.
So thinking of what that looks like. Yeah.
Well, so I'm gonna, Brad, we still have you up here, and one of the things that I know about you is your knowledge base is extremely high in a very specific area. And the thing that people like myself need to make sure that we're doing well for you is finding a way also to take things off of your plate, right? And that's one of the things that a good follower training needs to be. If we're following a leader in an industry or in a environment, one of the questions that we need to be asking is, what can I take off your plate?
Yeah.
Right. And those are things that we have to think about too, as we think about team building. When you think about working together to build something great, you have to be looking at it from both perspectives. The
Yep.
leader's looking at, what do I need to give away right now? And the followers are asking the question, what can I take off their plate? Right. And when you're really working on those things together, you can start identifying gaps. If there's not enough education on the follower side that they can take something off your plate, then that's part of your next step.
Yeah.
Right. And those are some of the things to really think about too, if that makes sense, Brad.
Yeah. How much can you hand off until you are 100% sure these are the long-term people to hand off to?
Well, yeah, that's true. Very
And
true.
on the other side of that, and Brad, this is not directed towards you, but towards
Yeah.
anybody. If you're ready to hand that off, you have to be ready to hand it off. You have to be ready to,
Yeah.
after they know exactly what they're supposed to do and everything, you have to be able to get your hands out of it
Yeah.
and not continuously, we have some that we do have a company, or some that we're working with right now, that they have handed off the task, but they are checking in about every hour going, oh, how's it going? Did you get this done? Did you get this done? Yes, I got it
Yeah.
done. Yes, I got it done. And so being able to go, okay, if there's a problem, figure it out. If you can't, then let me know. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. Yeah. All right. We have any
So-
other thoughts or comments on
yeah.
what we
I
have
was just
going?
going to say with delegation,
Yeah.
Rebecca, you were able to delegate to somebody that had more skills in that area.
Yep.
So, but it's hard and what Brad was saying was menial tasks, but it's harder when you're trying to delegate something that requires specialist knowledge. And
Yeah.
that's because it slows you down. You need to train someone, but it slows you down to train them. And so at what point do you sort of, most of the time it's quicker to just say, I'll just do it myself because I don't have the time to train someone. And it's a catch 22, unless you've got somebody that's extremely bright and catches on really, really, really fast. And I guess the follow up to that one is also Kylen, I've noticed that when you delegate, you tend to take responsibility for the other person almost more than you should. It's like if you didn't get it done, it's my fault because I didn't train you. And to a certain degree, that's true. But I think the people who are being trained should need to take on more responsibility, and I think that's a generational thing. It's like, hey, you didn't tell me what to do, and yes, the safety aspects and everything else, but I think you can expect a certain degree of common sense or and
Well,
or
you do expect a
responsibility.
certain degree of common sense. That's, yeah, sometimes that it's not quite there. David, talking about handing it over to someone, and even in, the specialty areas, as long as you're prepared. I mean, there are things that you have to do to be prepared. We have talked about communication, and if you're talking to someone and you're telling them, hey, these are the things that you need to do, and I need you to do them this way, and blah blah blah. It comes back to communication. If they're not receiving that well, if they're not hearing you the way that
Yeah.
that you're saying it, then that's a communication problem. So being prepared with, maybe the list of things that you want them to know, the list of things that you want to hand off to them. If it's in a handbook, if it's in a couple papers, these are the things that you need. So being prepared for what you are wanting them to take over is going to be a huge part of that, especially if it's in a specialty field, because it takes a little bit more.
I want to feed into this too, because David hit on something that is critical, and it's something that I struggle with, is they're not trained well. And what I really mean by that, when I talk about it, our followers are not trained well. If you're leading something anywhere, if you're developing something, you need to delegate, you need to hand off. There has to be followership training. In other words, like we just talked about with Brad, the followers should be asking, what can I take off your plate? What can I take and own myself? Do you realize that in today's culture, and some of it is just, it has to do with this device right here. In today's culture, we have created a weakness around asking, how can I take this off your plate? Because this is an example, Rebecca. If you have any trouble, just call me,
Right.
right? If you have trouble, just call me. We have created an environment where we end up taking too much ownership as leaders. We take on the responsibility, and the followership isn't taking on near enough. And I say that to myself, I say that to everyone, because I'm as much of a follower, in many cases, probably more so than I would be a leader. But that means I have to learn what to reach out and ask for, what to take off of someone's plate, how to truly take ownership.
That's, yes.
And if people don't know how to take ownership, it's not going to be well received.
But I'm also going to put this back to, it's the questions that you ask. And that's something
Yep.
that I am pushing on very, very hard lately, especially with our coaching clients. You can sit there and tell somebody something and go, okay, you need to do this today, this today, this today. You need to make sure you know this and you have this down. And they're going to go, okay, got it. And 1 hour later, you're going to come back and go, I thought you were doing this. Oh, did you mean that right now? And so when I say that, whoever you're delegating it to or whoever is doing that task, the first thing I say is ask them, what are you doing today? What are you doing today? So you can, okay, so this is what you're doing today. How are you doing that? So it tells you where their head is at. It tells you the things that they're going to do, but also you understand how they're going to do it. But so you're training them, but you're also putting the ownership back on them for understanding how they're going to do it. And the questions are huge because, like I said, half the time you can get done, okay, yep, got it.
Yeah.
And they don't have it.
Yeah. Well, so let's think about this, Rebecca, as we're wrapping up. This whole concept is the growth journey.
Yep.
And the one thing that I would challenge everybody listening to this right now, everything that we've talked about, it isn't about what you do. It's about who you are. Are you a good delegator? Are you good at leading? Are you good at following? Who are you in your industry? Because when it comes to being successful in the growth process, you have to be able to work people to people, people to people. We get stuck sometimes on the what we do avenues. We got to do certain things, and what you do is important. Don't get me wrong. But if you are not the person up front that can properly do the right things the right way, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle, and it's going to be an issue. And then what are you going to do? You're going to start pointing fingers outside of yourself to all the things external to you that are causing your life problems
Yep.
because we haven't owned it ourselves. We have to learn the skills of true leadership. We have to learn the skills of true followership. We have to learn how to delegate, which is a people skill. Communication is a people skill. The people skills in life are way more important than any other skill you'll ever learn. And if you learn the people skills, you'll be able to grow and scale your life as far as you want it to go. But if you miss those people skills, if you miss those abilities to connect with people and transition responsibility, and understand that there's an ability to respond that has to be implemented, then you're going to struggle. No ifs, no ands, no buts about it. And those are things that I think as human beings, as business owners, as leaders, as followers, we've got to think about that.
Well, and I think back to our topic, are we limiting our growth? Are we
Absolutely.
limiting our growth? No matter where we're at in this growth journey, is it personal things that we're limiting ourselves on?
Yep.
Is it time? Is it money? Is it bigger than that? Is it
Yep.
do I hire somebody? Do I hire somebody to do some little things? Do I hire somebody who is a bigger portion? Um, you're the one that has to decide on that.
Mhm.
And so getting over that limited mindset thinking and pushing past that is how you grow, how your business grows.
Yep.
How
Yep. Yep.
so
Well, Rebecca, this has been good. We're going to be on this topic now for a few weeks, right?
well, we were going to talk about awareness again, but I
Yep.
wanted this was something that I wanted to discuss because
Yep.
this is kind of the first step is we know awareness is the first step, absolutely. So being aware of what we are limiting ourselves on is a huge piece of it.
Yep.
How are we limiting ourselves?
Yeah. Well, and in terms of the growth wrap up here, thinking about ourselves as thinking about how we grow as human beings. Here's the question for you. If you want to make sure that tomorrow is better than today, what are you doing today to grow? Because if you want tomorrow to be better, it's only going to be better because you are better. You are better. Your personal growth and development is vital if you want tomorrow to be better. And I would challenge that if you want to lead, you want to build something great, the most important things that you can be developing right now is your ability to communicate, connect with people. I think it's one of the greatest skills that you'll ever have. If you can ask yourself, how do I become a master connector? How do I become a master communicator? And a communication is only as good as it's received,
Yep.
not how well it's given. How well is it received by the audience? But if you can ask yourself, am I a master connector? Am I a master communicator? Those two things will change your life.
Yeah.
They absolutely will. And I I truly believe that if you just took the whole year of 2025 and just learned those two things and mastered them, it'll change your life. It'll absolutely change your life. All the other skills that we have are hard skills. They're important, but they're not most important if you cannot transition a hard skill to someone else, and that is connection and communication.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, thank you, Rebecca, for setting this up.
Yep.
It's always a pleasure to go through these with you.
Really?
Really,
Really?
it is.
Are you
And
sure?
we get to do that all the
It's a
time.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Are you sure? Okay.
All right. All right. God bless everybody. Make it an amazing, amazing week. And we'll see you back here next week.
Thanks, guys.